Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're not just looking at an actor's career. No, we're deconstructing a philosophy. We're using one of the most intense reformers of our generation, Tom Hardy, as a case study to dive into a framework for radical transformation. This is a story about how you take absolute personal chaos and forge it into undeniable power.
So forget the red carpet for a second. Forget the movie premieres. The real story, the one that matters, it begins right here, in the gutter. I mean, think about that contrast for a moment. Here's a guy who, on paper, has achieved the Hollywood dream. But in reality, he's completely bankrupt. And not just financially, but spiritually. It's that gut punch realization that all the success in the world means absolutely nothing if your internal world is just collapsing around you.
Let me paint you a picture. The scene is Old Compton Street in London. The year is 2003. A 25-year-old Tom Hardy, fresh off this role in a huge Ridley Scott blockbuster, he wakes up in a pool of his own blood and vomit. Neon lights blurring above him. He'd sold his soul for a rock, as he later put it. Now, this wasn't just a low point. This was rock bottom. But waking up in that ambulance, that wasn't the end. It was the beginning. This one single, brutal moment, that's the birthplace of the entire framework we're about to unpack.
So, how in the world did he pull himself out of that?
Well, we're going to break his journey down into 6 distinct stages. This is the roadmap of his transformation. Let's get into it.
Most people in that situation, they would have become a statistic, just another tragic Hollywood story. But what happened inside Hardy's mind wasn't despair, it wasn't self-pity, it was something else, something way more powerful. It was a moment of pure, focused defiance against himself.
Just let that sink in for a second. A searing, incandescent rage. This wasn't anger at the world, or his job, or anything else. It was rage directed inward, at the internal chaos, what he called the noise, that put him on that pavement. And right there, in that moment, he made a decision. He would no longer be a victim of his own mind. He decided to kill the pretty boy persona he'd been leaning on and instead build a literal cage for his chaos. And that was the first, most critical step, channeling all that destructive energy into building something new.
But where did all that noise even come from? I mean, to really understand this framework, we have to go back. We have to understand the prison he was so desperately trying to escape. Because that rage, it didn't come from nowhere. It was the final eruption of a volcano that had been building since he was a kid.
This right here, this shows you the profound disconnect. To the outside world, he had it all, right? A comfortable middle-class upbringing, creative parents. He looked like a nice boy. But inside his own head, he was living in a state of what he called vibrating silence, this constant, humming anxiety that made him feel like skinny, vulnerable prey. He felt like a complete fraud in his own skin, and that kind of pressure, well, it has to go somewhere.
And this is exactly where it went. The quiet, anxious kid started performing a role way before he ever saw a movie set, the role of the bad boy. But this wasn't who he really was. It was an act. It was a desperate attempt to prove to the world, and maybe mostly to himself, that he wasn't scared. Getting arrested, getting expelled from every school, it was all a performance, fueled by that internal chaos. I mean, even in drama school, surrounded by people who were dying for fame, he just wanted to disappear. He wanted to be gone.
And out of all that turmoil, a core belief started to form, and this becomes the engine for his entire philosophy. He realized that if inner peace was totally impossible, if that noise was never really going to go away, then the only other option was to become something else entirely. He had to become a machine. Precise, functional, unstoppable.
And this brings us right to the heart of the Hardy framework. This is where that raw idea of becoming a machine gets sharpened into a razor-edged tool, not just for performance, but for life itself.
This is the absolute core of it all. It's called the vacuum principle. Now, most of us, we think intensity is about being loud, right? About shouting, about creating more noise to be heard. Hardy's philosophy is the exact opposite. He figured out that true power, real intensity, it comes from containment. It's about creating a vacuum, an area of such focused silence that it actually becomes more powerful than any scream ever could be.
And this slide really puts it into perspective, how his whole approach just clashes with the traditional actor's toolkit. I mean, most actors, they're taught to be charming, to be relatable, to look for that external validation. Hardy just rejected all of it.
He traded charm for technical superiority. He swapped out validation for internal containment, and he replaced all that chaos with just pure precision and silence. He wasn't there to make friends. He was there to be so technically overwhelming that you just couldn't look away. And here it is. This is the simple, powerful equation at the very heart of the Hardy framework. See, power isn't intensity plus noise. It's what's left over when you subtract all that noise, the self-doubt, the need for approval, all of it, from your raw intensity. What remains? That is pure, undeniable presence. Okay, but a philosophy is pretty useless without a system, right? So how did he turn the vacuum into a physical reality? This is where he started to build the machine piece by piece, with this relentless, almost mechanical discipline.
Now this is a really key concept. He didn't just work out. He practiced something called physical signaling. And the goal wasn't just to look strong for a role. The goal was to send a constant, high-frequency message to his body and his entire nervous system. And that message was simple. Be ready, be dangerous, be under a constant state of siege. It's all about training the body's response, not just its appearance.
And this just shows you the sheer volume of that signaling. For roles like Bronson or Bane, we're not talking about a few sets of 10 here. We are talking about thousands of reps a day, done in short, high-frequency bursts all day long. It's that constant pressure, that relentless signaling, that forged the incredible physical presence he's known for. It's about overwhelming the system with discipline.
And here's the why behind all of it. The goal was never vanity. It was to create functional rage. It was about building a kind of strength that was tangible, that had a palpable gravity to it. A strength that didn't just look intimidating on camera, but was actually felt by everyone in the room. It was the physical manifestation of his contained intensity.
So beyond the signaling, he pursued deep specialization. If you go to a local Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament, you won't see Tom Hardy the movie star. You'll see Edward Hardy the competitor. He literally replaced his addiction to chaos with an addiction to the mat. And why? Well, because BJJ is the ultimate test of his philosophy. It's all about maintaining that quiet intensity while someone is physically trying to break you. It is the vacuum principle in live combat.
Okay, so we have the philosophy, the vacuum principle, and we have the system, physical signaling and deep specialization. So what's the result? Let's look at what this all adds up to. This is where the process creates a truly undeniable transformation.
Remember this? This is how he felt as a child, like a fraud, a vulnerable kid trapped inside a busy head, absolutely terrified of the world. Just hold that image in your mind for a second as we look at what he became.
And this brings it all full circle. Think about him as Bane or as Mad Max. He's famous for his work behind masks. The very same kid who wanted to hide, who just wanted to be gone, learned how to use hiding as his greatest weapon. By covering his face, he removed the conventional tools an actor uses, and that forced the world to focus only on the raw, contained intensity that was just radiating from him. He became pure presence.
But look, this story is so much more than just a biography of an actor. It's a framework. And this is the part where we turn the lens from his journey to ours. It's about asking a powerful set of questions, really for anyone who feels trapped by their own internal noise.
So the questions for you are pretty simple. What is the noise in your life? You know, the anxiety, the self-doubt, the endless distractions. And maybe more importantly, what is your BJJ? What's the one skill you can specialize in so deeply, so completely, that you become undeniable? See, you don't have to silence the noise forever. You just have to build a system to contain it and then channel it into something powerful.
Because ultimately, that's what this is all about, isn't it? It isn't about fame or money or applause. It's about taking all your chaos, all your vulnerability, all your rage, and forging it into a presence so focused that it simply cannot be dismissed. It is about the decision to never be ignored again.